He thought she was just another waitress struggling to get by. Just another face behind a forced smile. But he had no idea what she was hiding until he heard her crying in the kitchen. Michael Thompson sat quietly at the corner booth, his face partially hidden beneath a worn baseball cap. He looked just like any other customer. Jeans, a simple shirt, nothing out of the ordinary. No one would have guessed that he was the owner of the diner, the man whose name was on the sign above the door. He watched as the young waitress moved between tables, her smile polite but distant. Her name tag read Megan, and she looked exhausted. Dark circles framed her eyes and her shoulders slumped with each step. Yet, she continued to smile, continued to serve each customer as if nothing was wrong. Michael's plan was simple. He wanted to see his business from the ground level, to understand the challenges his employees faced every day. But he wasn't prepared for what he was about to discover. Megan approached his table, her voice soft but steady. "Good evening, sir. Can I get you started with something to drink?" He looked up, catching a glimpse of her tired eyes. "Just a coffee, please." She nodded, scribbling quickly on her notepad before hurrying off to the kitchen. Michael watched her go, noticing the way her shoulders sagged once she was out of sight of the customers. There was something heavy about her demeanor, a weight she was clearly struggling to carry. He had seen employees tired before, but this was different. This was the kind of exhaustion that went beyond physical fatigue. His curiosity was piqued. He watched as Megan disappeared behind the swinging kitchen doors. A moment later, he heard it, a muffled sob, quickly followed by another. Michael's heart sank. He leaned forward, straining to hear. The faint sound of crying echoed from the kitchen, raw and heartbreaking. It was Megan. He glanced around the diner. No one else seemed to notice. The other waitresses moved between tables. The cook shouted orders. Customers laughed and chatted. But behind those kitchen doors, Megan was breaking. Michael felt a surge of unease. This wasn't what he had expected. He had come here to observe his business, to see how things were running firsthand. But now he was witnessing something deeply personal, something that clearly went beyond the workplace. He could have ignored it, could have finished his coffee, left a tip, and walked out. But the sound of her crying lingered, gnawing at him. He couldn't just leave, not without understanding what was happening. Before we continue, comment below where you're watching from today. And if you enjoy stories that reveal hard truths and unexpected turns, don't forget to subscribe for more. Michael couldn't shake the sound of Megan's sobs from his mind. It echoed in his thoughts, mingling with the laughter of customers and the clatter of dishes. He had come here to understand his business, but now he felt compelled to understand her pain. Setting his coffee cup down, he rose from the booth and made his way toward the kitchen. He moved slowly, not wanting to draw attention. To everyone else, he was just another customer stretching his legs. As he neared the swinging doors, the muffled crying grew clearer. Megan's voice, choked and trembling, reached his ears. I can't do this anymore." Michael's chest tightened. He paused just outside the door, torn between his instincts as a businessman and his conscience as a human being. He shouldn't be eavesdropping, but he needed to understand what was happening. Then another voice cut through the air, harsh and cold. Rick Donovan, the diner's manager. "I don't care about your problems, Megan. You either do your job or you're out. We don't need weaklings here." Michael's jaw clenched, anger flaring within him. He had known Rick for years, trusted him to run this place efficiently, but he never imagined he spoke to his staff like this. Inside, Megan's sobs grew quieter, but her words were filled with desperation. "I'm trying, I really am, but I'm working double shifts just to pay rent. I can't keep up. I'm exhausted." Rick's response was merciless. "Not my problem. If you can't handle it, quit. Plenty of people would kill for your job." Michael felt his fist tighten at his sides. How long had this been going on? How many other employees had been treated this way without his knowledge? He leaned back, pressing his shoulders against the wall as the conversation continued. Megan's voice wavered, barely above a whisper. "I need this job. I don't have anywhere else to go." Rick's laugh was sharp, devoid of empathy. "Then stop crying and get back out there and wipe that pathetic look off your face. Customers don't tip waitresses who look miserable." Michael's blood ran cold. He had heard enough. As Rick's footsteps approached the kitchen door, Michael quickly stepped back, returning to his booth before he was seen. His mind raced, emotions swirling within him. Anger, guilt, frustration. This was his diner. His name was on the door. And yet, he had been blind to the cruelty happening behind those kitchen walls. He watched as Megan emerged from the kitchen, her shoulders stiff, her eyes red but dry. Her face was a perfect mask of professionalism, her lips curling into a forced smile as she approached a table of customers. "Hi there, can I get you started with anything?" Her voice was cheerful, practiced, no trace of the pain she had just revealed. Michael's heart ached. He could see the cracks in her facade, the way she held herself together with sheer willpower. He looked down at his coffee cup, the liquid swirling inside as his thoughts spun just as wildly. How many times had she put on that mask? How many other employees had done the same, too afraid to speak out? Michael had come here to see how his business was running, but what he found was a culture of fear, of intimidation, carefully hidden behind smiles and customer service. He had trusted Rick to lead with integrity, but now all he could see was a bully abusing his power, crushing the spirits of the people who made this diner what it was. Michael took a deep breath, his hands tightening around his coffee cup. This wasn't just about business anymore. It was about doing what was right. He looked up, his gaze landing on Megan as she took another order, her voice unwavering despite the pain in her eyes. He had a choice to make. He could leave, continue his life without ever confronting the truth he had just uncovered. Or he could stand up for her, for all of them. Michael's jaw tightened. He knew what he had to do. Michael watched Megan move from table to table, her fake smile never wavering. Each laugh she forced, every polite nod, it all felt like a punch to his gut. She was suffering, and no one saw it. No one except him. He couldn't sit still any longer. The anger that had been boiling inside him reached a breaking point. It wasn't just about Megan. It was about the culture of fear Rick had built, the toxic environment he had unknowingly allowed to fester. Michael stood up, his movements deliberate, his eyes locked on the kitchen doors. He marched through the diner, his steps heavy with purpose. As he pushed the doors open, he found Rick leaning against the counter, sipping coffee as if he hadn't just crushed someone's spirit. Rick looked up, his expression shifting from surprise to annoyance. "Customers aren't allowed back here. Can't you read the sign?" Michael pulled off his cap, his face hard as stone. "Do you know who I am?" Rick's eyes widened, his mouth dropping open. "Mr. Thompson, I didn't realize—" "That's right. Michael Thompson, the owner of this diner." Michael's voice was cold, controlled, but his eyes burned with fury. "And I just heard everything you said to Megan." Rick's face went pale. I was just trying to keep things running smoothly. You know how these girls can be. Always complaining about something. Michael's fist tightened. Is that what you think? That your job is to break them down? To humiliate them? Rick tried to laugh it off, but it came out shaky. Look, you know how it is. You got to be tough, or they'll walk all over you. I was just motivating her. Motivating her? Michael's voice was low, dangerous. By telling her she's weak, by threatening to fire her. That's not motivation, that's abuse. Rick's bravado crumbled, his shoulders hunching. I didn't mean, it's just, she's always so emotional. It's bad for business. Michael's eyes narrowed. You think her emotions are bad for business? You know what's worse? Driving good people to the breaking point, making them feel worthless. Rick opened his mouth, but no words came out. He looked at Michael, his eyes pleading. I didn't realize it was that serious. Michael took a step closer, his gaze piercing. You didn't realize because you didn't care. You saw her as just another employee, someone to control. But these people aren't machines, Rick. They have lives, struggles, dreams. And your job was to support them, not destroy them. Rick's shoulders slumped, his face paling. I was just doing what I thought was best. Michael shook his head. You were doing what was best for you. Not for them, not for this diner, and certainly not for Megan. He looked around the kitchen, his eyes falling on the empty sink where Megan had broken down just moments ago. His chest tightened with guilt. This was his business, his responsibility, and he had failed them by trusting the wrong person. Michael turned back to Rick, his voice cold. You're done here. Pack your things and leave. Rick's eyes widened, panic flashing across his face. Wait, you can't just fire me. I've been loyal to you for years. Loyal? Michael's laugh was bitter. Loyalty isn't about how long you've worked here. It's about how you treat people. And you've proven you don't deserve to lead them? Rick's face twisted in anger, but he knew better than to argue. He looked at Michael one last time, his eyes a mix of fear and resentment, before storming out of the kitchen. The door swung shut behind him, the sound echoing through the empty kitchen. For a moment, Michael stood there in silence, the weight of what had just happened settling on his shoulders. He had done what was right, but the damage was already done. Megan was still hurting. And who knew how many others had suffered under Rick's reign? Michael's shoulders sagged. He had been blind, too focused on profits and numbers to see the pain beneath the surface. But no more. He was going to fix this. He was going to make things right. Michael stood in the empty kitchen, the echoes of his confrontation with Rick still bouncing off the walls. But he knew the fight wasn't over. Firing Rick was just the beginning. Now he needed to rebuild what had been broken. He took a deep breath, his resolve hardening. He owed it to Megan and to every employee who had suffered under Rick's toxic leadership. He wouldn't be the kind of owner who looked the other way. Not anymore. He stepped back into the dining area, his eyes scanning the room until they landed on Megan. She was standing by a table, taking an order with that same forced smile. But now Michael could see the cracks. He could see the pain hidden behind her eyes. He approached her quietly, waiting until she finished with the customers before speaking. Megan, can we talk for a moment? She turned, surprise flickering across her face. Oh, sure. Is everything okay? Michael managed a small, reassuring smile. Let's go to the office. I think it's time for some honesty. Megan's eyes widened in confusion, but she followed him, her shoulders tense. As they entered the office, Michael closed the door behind them, motioning for her to sit. She hesitated, clearly nervous. Did I do something wrong? Michael shook his head, his expression softening. No, Megan, you didn't do anything wrong, but I did. Her brow furrowed. I don't understand. He took off his cap, running a hand through his hair. I haven't been honest with you. I'm not just a customer. I'm Michael Thompson. I own this diner. Megan's eyes widened, her face paling. Wait, you're the owner? He nodded, guilt washing over him. Yes. I came here undercover to see how things were running. I wanted to understand my business from the ground level. But what I found was much more than I expected. Megan's eyes dropped to her lap, her hands twisting nervously. You heard me. In the kitchen? Michael's heart tightened. Yes, I heard everything. And I heard how Rick spoke to you, how he treated you. I had no idea that was happening, Megan. I trusted him to take care of this place, to take care of all of you. And he failed. But so did I, by not paying attention sooner. A tear slipped down Megan's cheek, her shoulders trembling. I tried so hard. I tried to keep smiling, to keep working, but it was too much. Michael's voice softened, his heart breaking at her vulnerability. I know, and I'm so sorry you went through that. I should have been here. I should have seen what was happening, but I promise you, things are going to change. Megan looked up, hope flickering in her eyes. Change? How? I fired Rick, effective immediately. He will never have the chance to hurt you or anyone else here again. Megan's eyes widened, her hands covering her mouth. You fired him? Michael nodded. Yes, and I'm not just stopping there. I want to rebuild this place, not just as a diner, but as a team, a family. I want to create an environment where everyone feels safe and respected. Megan's shoulders sagged with relief, tears streaming down her face. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, Michael replied gently, but I do need your help. You're strong, Megan, stronger than you think, and you care about this place. I see that now. I want you to help me rebuild it. Help me create the kind of workplace where no one has to hide their pain behind a smile. Megan's lip trembled, her eyes shimmering with gratitude. I'd like that. I really would. Michael's chest tightened with emotion. Then we'll do it. Together. Megan wiped her tears, a genuine smile breaking through. Thank you for listening, for caring. Michael felt his own eyes sting. Thank you for staying strong, even when you were breaking inside. I see you now, Megan, and I promise I won't look away again. They stood in silence, the weight of the past slowly lifting, making room for hope. Michael knew it wouldn't be easy. Healing never was, but he was ready to fight for his team, for Megan, and for the future of his diner. He had come undercover to see his business, but what he found was his responsibility to protect, to care, and to lead with integrity. The following morning, Michael stood at the front of the diner, his eyes scanning the faces of his staff. They looked at him with a mixture of confusion and curiosity, whispering among themselves. Some of them recognized him from his visit the previous night, but most had no idea who he really was. He cleared his throat, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Good morning, everyone. My name is Michael Thompson, and I'm the owner of this diner. The room went silent. Faces turned pale, eyes widened in shock. Whispers of surprise rippled through the crowd as realization dawned. Michael continued, his gaze firm. I came here undercover to see how things were running, to understand what my employees go through every day. What I discovered was unacceptable. He looked directly at Megan, whose eyes were already glistening with tears. I discovered pain, exhaustion, and a culture of fear created by someone I trusted. The mention of Rick's name caused murmurs among the staff. Some nodded in agreement, others looked away, ashamed they hadn't spoken up sooner. Michael's voice grew stronger, more resolute. Rick Donovan is no longer employed here. He abused his power, disrespected his team, and created a toxic environment. That is not how we do business. Not here, not ever. A wave of relief washed over the employees. Shoulders relaxed, smiles began to appear. For the first time in a long while, they felt seen. They felt heard. Michael took a deep breath, his eyes softening. I want to apologize to each of you. I failed to protect you. I was so focused on numbers and growth that I lost sight of what really matters: people. All of you. He glanced at Megan again, his voice cracking slightly. No one should ever have to hide their pain behind a smile just to keep their job. No one should ever feel worthless or afraid at work. Megan wiped a tear away, her face full of gratitude. She had never imagined this moment would come. Michael straightened his shoulders, determination radiating from him. But we're going to change that. Starting today, we rebuild. Not just the diner, but the trust, the culture, the family that this place is meant to be. He looked around the room, meeting each employee's eyes. I can't do it alone. I need your help. I need your voices. If something isn't right, if someone is being mistreated, I want you to feel safe speaking up. No more fear, no more silence. A murmur of agreement spread through the crowd, heads nodding, spirits lifting. They believed him. They felt his sincerity, his commitment. Michael's gaze softened as he turned to Megan. Megan, you showed incredible courage by staying strong, even when things were at their worst. You've proven that you care about this place and the people in it. That's why, if you're willing, I'd like to promote you to shift supervisor. I need leaders who care, leaders who inspire, and you are exactly that. Megan's jaw dropped, her hands flying to her mouth. I don't know what to say. Michael smiled warmly. Say yes, and help me make this place better. Tears of joy streamed down Megan's face as she nodded, her voice trembling. Yes, of course, thank you. So much. The staff erupted into applause, cheering for Megan, for the changes, for the hope that filled the room. Michael felt his chest tighten with emotion. This was what leadership looked like. Not numbers on a spreadsheet, but people, lives, hearts. He took a step back, letting the staff surround Megan, congratulating her, lifting her spirits. For the first time in a long time, laughter filled the diner. Genuine laughter. Michael watched them with a smile, his heart full. This was only the beginning. There was still a lot of work to do, but they were on the right path. He had come undercover to see his business, but he had found so much more. He had found a broken family that needed healing, a community that needed compassion. Michael turned toward the door, his heart lighter than it had been in years. He had found his purpose again, not just as a CEO, but as a leader who saw his people, a leader who listened, a leader who cared. Before you go, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. What did you think about Michael's journey and Megan's courage? If you want to hear more stories that reveal hard truths and powerful transformations, don't forget to subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Thank you for watching and for supporting stories that matter.